Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and Ms. Corby, counsel for Mrs. Smith, and Mr. Brown, counsel for Mr. Smith. I would like to welcome everybody to this session and congratulate you for deciding about having a mediation meeting. My name is Grace Randa, mediator for today's session. Before we start, I would like to inform everyone that we've got amenities outside the door, the boarding room, on the right-hand side. The fire escape is opposite the amenities on the left-hand side, and we've got a complimentary water on the table. I would like to confirm that we've got the right parties, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, to the dispute, and also that the parties have the authority to settle the dispute. Is that Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, and I have authority, yes.
Thank you very much. I would also like to acknowledge that I have received the signed papers, the confidentiality statement, and the mediation agreement, including the mediator's professional indemnity policy. Shortly about me, I'm a mediator with law degrees and accreditation from the Queensland Law Society, and I've got a 2 months experience in mediation. My role as a mediator is impartial, and I act without prejudice, and I act on the best interest of both parties. The process is confidential and cannot be disclosed to anyone. Mediation is a process in which parties to the dispute, with the assistance of the mediator, identify the disputed issues. They will look at the options and also consider alternatives, alternative options that enables the parties to reach a mutually agreed agreement. Mediation is a voluntary process, and any party to the mediation can withdraw at any time. The mediator's got the right to suspend or terminate the mediation if there is enough grounds to do so. However, I would like to encourage both parties to continue the process with the aim of reaching a satisfactory to all agreement, as court proceedings can be lengthy and costly. And also in court session, the power to make a decision is taken from both parties to judge or jury, whereas in a mediation, people can decide on a settlement. They've got the power to make this decision. In a process of a mediation, allow each party to talk without interruption. We also would like to encourage both parties to refrain from foul language, including both body language. I would like to encourage both of you to commit yourself to this mediation process and participate in a good faith and focus on the settling of the dispute. And I also would like you to encourage to be open-minded to ideas and listen to each other, and try to reach the compromise. I would like you both to have a positive outcome by the end of the session. The stages of mediation would involve to have an opening statement by each party, and then I'll just summarize the issues that I will try to identify. Then I would allow you to communicate between yourself, to try to look at some options. And also, if we need to have a private session, we might just go to separate room and have the private session. After that, we'll just look at the options and look at the solutions, and also at the alternative options, what would be available. And I'm hopeful that we can conclude with the settlement by the end of the session. And I've got the authority to settle the dispute. At this stage, I would like to ask, do we have an agreement? Who would like to start first or a second? Mr. and Mrs. Smith, would you like to have a say in it?
I'll go first, if that's okay.
Is that okay, Mr. Smith?
That's fine. Thank you.
No worries.
Mrs. Smith, please.
Okay. For the record, I'm Mrs. Smith. As you know, we're going through a divorce, and this is for settlement. I would like to have basically 2/3 of the house, because I spent my time as a homemaker, and I supported at home my husband, and I had a lot of responsibility to raise the children. I feel I deserve to have the contents of the house, and I'd really like to keep the dog named Burek. I know that it's dear to my husband, but I'd really like to keep the dog. Furthermore, I feel that I've been, misled on the superannuation factor of it all, because I couldn't work because I was raising the children. So I'd like some sort of monetary disclosure with that. I'd like to have 2/3 of the house, and most of the contents in it, I guess, for that matter. That's where I'm at. That's my position anyway. I just like to be treated fairly and recognise that, regardless that I didn't have a full-time employment, etc., that I did do my own job at home, raising a family, getting the fires burning at home, so to speak. Even though that's not paid work, that is highly recognisable as a mother and a caregiver, so that my husband could actually work full-time. So it's kind of like catch-22 position.
Maybe Mr. Smith, would you like to have your opening statement, and I'll just summarize afterwards.
Fine. I also want 2/3 of the house, but my reasoning is that I paid the mortgage, and so I deserve the better part of the value of the house. I think that Narita can remain in the house, but I want 2/3 of the value of the house.
So I just need the remuneration accordingly with that. Thank you.
I just will summarize.
I don't want any of the content in the house, but I do need a fridge, washing machine, and a TV. Now, I know that Narita hasn't had much to do with the dog, and the dog is really my companion. I take him out for runs, and I care for the dog. I feel that I should get the dog. I'm prepared to give up all of the contents of the house, apart from the dog and the trailer. I like to go out fishing, and Narita doesn't like fishing, so I feel I deserve the trailer as well.
Let me summarize that the issues the issues are that Mrs. Smith, Narita would like to have 2/3 of the house, and Gordon would like 2/3 of the house, and Mrs. Smith feels that she's entitled because of raising the family, helping the husband to go to work. So it's also Gordon thinking that as a bread earner should have more entitlements to the house. Also, the issue is how to divide the content, and Narita would like to have most of the content, whereas Gordon would like to have only some items that are practical from the house. And the issues of the dog, because both parties would like to have a dog. Gordon would like to have the dog because he's bonded with the dog and is very much looking after the dog and is his companion, whereas the issue for Narita is just to have the dog. And the trailer is probably, can we agree that the trailer is almost like an agreed issue, because it's not an issue for me, because Narita, you don't particularly want to have a trailer, you don't mention that you want, and the trailer is important for you, Gordon. So can we find out the common ground that we can already agree that the trailer can belong to Gordon?
Yes.
And
I agree with that.
in respect to the house, two people cannot have the same amount from one property and to having 2/3. Is there any consideration from the other parties that they would like to consider to be in a position of the other parties? Or is there any ground that we can find that is more fair to share the value of the house? Would you like to talk to Gordon about it?
Well, I guess with the house, the 2/3 of the home, obviously if it doesn't work out here, we can get our respective solicitors and sort it out. But it'd be good if we could sort it out here today to save extra, costs, etc. Would you like some more of the contents of the home, perhaps? Because as you know, respectfully, that you had to work full time, but that was only possible because I was looking after the home, looking after the children and yourself, and doing all those practicalities at home, and no one's going to pay me for that. So I think it's really quite unfair that is that not recognised, and I'm pretty sure in the family court that is recognised that usually the mother is not remunerated with that. So it has to be, maybe we could try and work out a bit more of a balance in that respect. I'm not going to walk away with nothing.
No, I don't expect you to walk away with nothing. The more of the contents of the house, I'm not interested in more of the contents, but I would like the TV and the fridge and washing machine. How do you feel about that?
Yep, that's fine, and you can have the dog.
Okay, but what about the trailer? What do you feel about that?
I will give you the trailer, the dog, and the the necessities like the fridge and freezer. And
okay, so what equity in the house do you expect? How much of the house? Still 2/3?
2/3.
How do you feel about it, Gordon?
Well, I'd be prepared to accept 1/2. We don't have children at home anymore, so it's not a case of you having to provide a home for the children.
However, it has to be recognised that I now I've got to find employment. I haven't got trained abilities. I've got to enter the workforce because I've been staying at home all the time, looking after children, rearing a family. It's going to cost extra cost in getting a training, and getting training done, and so that's got to be understood as well. So I'm not only just getting a job straight away. I've been a housewife for the last 20 odd years, so I've just that's got to be understood as well.
Okay, so you talked about the superannuation.
Yeah.
You want superannuate. How much of the superannuation?
What would be the fair issue if we take into consideration the house and the superannuation? If we take into consideration superannuation, would the content of the house would still be too fair, or would Gordon, would you consider to share your superannuation for the part of the house, for the division of the house? Would you consider in a negotiation?
I would be prepared for a 1/2 share in the house and a 1/2 share in the superannuation.
Narita, how do you feel about it? Would it be fair to you?
That would be fair, yeah, that'd be fair, but I'd like to think about it overnight.
Gordon, what would you like to say to that?
Yes, just understand that the superannuation is a trust and it won't become mature until I retire. So, so you won't have access to that money. What do you feel about that?
That'd be
until I retire.
Yeah, but I'd have to obviously get a solicitor to write those details up and ensure that that's all legit.
Thank you very much. So may I summarize that we agreed, we have a tentative agreement that has to be yet finalized, that you agreed to divide the house, the value of the house in half, to divide the superannuation of Gordon's superannuation in half, that Gordon will have a trailer and a dog, and some items from the house like television, washing machine, and Narita will have the rest of the content of the house. Have we reached an agreement on it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulate on your settlement. Thank you.
Thank you.